So Comrade Kamala is having a rebrand moment. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is Kimberly McNabb. So we're going to go ahead and look at some analysis that was done post Kamala Harris's DNC speech, in which people are saying that she sounds like a Republican. Let's go ahead and watch.
As I look at who this speech was aimed at last night, I think of a lot of M words: moderates, middle class, middle America.
Donald Trump has tried to define her. You know, they talk about her, the Republicans, the Trump Republicans, as a San Francisco liberal, as a radical. They call her Comrade Kamala. But she gave a speech, George, that if you take out that section on abortion rights, much of this speech could have been delivered at a Republican convention before Trump. She talked tough on Iran. She promised that as commander-in-chief, America would have the most lethal and strongest fighting force in the world. Very interesting move, and quite a contrast from the way she ran for president the first time when she tried to get the nomination 4 years ago. This is a Kamala Harris that sounded a little bit more like Maggie Thatcher or Ronald Reagan, especially on national security, than like Bernie Sanders.
Well, I tell you what, I've never heard anybody refer to Margaret Thatcher, who's the Prime Minister of England in the 80s, that was, best buds with Ronald Reagan, as Maggie Thatcher.
Yeah, she's not the baby from The Simpsons.
No.
I mean, it's just to infantilize a very powerful and brilliant woman.
Yeah, I mean, even a movie that was talking about her life called her the Iron Lady.
Yeah.
Right? The Iron Lady is not Maggie.
I mean, I've never seen an interview or a run-in with Kamala Harris where she sounded like the Iron Lady.
Yeah, no. So here's the thing is we have ABC, CNN, just the legacy mainstream media are all trying to rebrand and reboot this series of Kamala Harris, who is a progressive. She is a far left politician, and she is having the media, I think you said, provide top cover.
Yeah, they're running cover for her. And remember, up until a month ago, everyone, even CNN, everyone would say she was far left.
Right.
And let's not forget the government tracker that rated her left of Bernie Sanders.
Exactly.
That is who she is. Believe people by their actions. And up until a month ago, all of her actions said far leftist. This is not like someone who's a Republican and they're interviewed and they're like, well, when you were in college 20 years ago, you were pro-abortion. What
Right.
changed? And, it's like, well, now I have grandchildren and it just touches my heart and I can't stand to see a baby die. Like, it's pretty different between 20 years and a month ago.
Yeah, Kimberly, I couldn't agree more. I mean, here she is. She is a progressive politician. She's from California that has progressive policies. The legislature in California is a supermajority of Democrats, right? So anything goes. They pass all kinds of far left, legislation. She was in San Francisco, which is a bastion of liberalism, and for her to come out on that stage and give a speech that clearly she did not write. She did not write it. It was done by a professional speechwriter, and what they're trying to do is give her sheep's clothing for that wolf that she is, in order to appeal to moderates and independents and some never Trump Republicans, to say, look, just kidding, I'm really a centrist moderate and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, ignore all those comments from like a week before where
Right.
she was basically saying she's going to control grocery store prices. So hell, not a month ago, a week ago.
Yeah,
a week ago, really? You've had that big of an awakening in a week, huh?
I mean, that's it. That's exactly right. I mean, to price control groceries and food and things like that, that is literally socialism. That is not a centrist policy. That's not a centrist policy. It just is not. And it's very disingenuous for the media to do this covering for her and to try and say that, look, she is a moderate and a centrist. I mean, Michael Moore, in a recent article, is beyond ecstatic that she is going to be the most progressive president ever. He knows who she is.
Yeah, progressives know who's going to progress.
Yeah, I mean,
They recognize the game.
He knows who she is and what she stands for, and he cannot wait for more progressive ideologies to just keep pushing the country to the left. I mean, you know, when we talk about words matter and precise words matter, this speech was good. It was a good speech. It really was a good. I watched it. I enjoyed it. It was a good speech, but the whole time I kept telling myself, "This is not who you are. This is not who she is." Great speech, but that's not who she is. She lied the entire time.
Every other word, lied. Like I could barely stomach it.
I mean, you know, she threaded. You know, she's a politician, first of all. So let's.
The person who wrote the speech is a politician.
Yeah, exactly. She's a politician, but she threaded this needle in between Israel and Palestine. I mean, even Joe Biden at the beginning of the week said the Palestinian protesters have a point, but still, you know, she's trying to thread that needle because she needs those particular votes. But again, this was an entire production and a lie in order to get your votes because the media won't keep her accountable. It's been, now we're at 37 days. 37 days.
I think it's 38. But
38?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, the news needs to stop presenting itself as news. Like, are you news or are you opinion piece?
Right.
And like I think you said earlier, MSNBC is really more like 80-90% opinion than. But the thing is, people, they just have this label as a news station,
right?
And so people turn it on and just assume it's news. And you know, I looked up some stuff about journalism, and you know, according to Career Builder, journalists must adhere to ethical standards and journalistic principles such as, wait for it, accuracy, fairness, objectivity, and balance. And one of the objectives of journalism is the public trust, one of the components of which is preventing the public from being misled by some statement or action of an individual or organization, per sanford.edu. So all this covering for her, when you're covering for someone, you're basically on their team. You are basically an in-kind contribution to their campaign. And where's that going to be on the financial statements?
Yeah, I mean that's the you know the problem that I have is when you have editorial shows, which are opinion shows, and then you have journalism. I mean, so again, when you look at you know, MSNBC, the very fact that they have all of these editorial shows where people give a news snippet and then give their opinion and on it and try and convince you that their opinion is correct, and they usually do you know, partial truths in order to cherry pick you know, words that people say. I mean, Donald Trump has done an interview with Dr. Phil, and it hasn't been released yet. It's going to be released later this week on the Dr. Phil show. But Dr. Phil has put out some snippets on X, and it talks about how a lot of Trump's words are taken out of context in order to demonize him and vilify him, right? And it's not Fox News that's demonizing and vilifying him on some of those things that he said. For example, one of the most famous one, there were fine people on both sides. And so what the mainstream media captured that on is that saying that the counter-protesters and the Ku Klux Klan white supremacists, you know, were fine people. He was talking about what was going on, and it was a protest and a counter-protest on the removal of Confederate statues.
Yeah, and he meant each side has a point for removing the statues and against.
Right, and so it wasn't the white supremacist and then the counter protester who was a liberal that got hit by the car and died. That's not the part he was talking about. But that's what they focused on. Oh, a woman was killed. There were fine people on both sides. They took all of that out of context, and so that's one of the things that this show is going to discuss. Is Donald Trump, Dr. Phil, I guess, is going to ask him about certain comments that he made, and Donald Trump's like, "Look, here is the context of what I was saying there." So in this instance, we have the mainstream media doing these opinion pieces and vilifying Trump, but then they're trying to rebrand and reboot Kamala Harris, even though she hasn't given any interviews.
Yeah, they're trying to glorify her and just. I feel like we're being bombarded by articles that are just glorifying her and her husband, Doug Emhoff. So ridiculous, to the point of just caricature. For instance, a DNC delegate on ABC says she hasn't really gotten specific. We would really like to hear specifics from the number 2 in the current administration. VP Harris has been brave to roll out an economic agenda. The more you like this, meaning not having one, the more you share, the more your policies will be picked apart. Well, that's kind of the point of journalism, is to ask questions. Well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? So that you can present and disseminate information to the public. And the less you do of that, the more you are obviously covering for someone, the less public trust you have.
Right. I mean, so Quentin Tarantino was on Bill Maher's podcast, not a show. It was a podcast. They were sitting down next to each other drinking some kind of tequila or something like that. And Quentin Tarantino was challenging Bill Maher for, for saying that she should be doing interviews. Quentin Tarantino said, no, absolutely not. She shouldn't be doing interviews because we want to win, meaning the Democrats, and she'll just fuck shit up. And that's what he said.
That's very true. I mean, if you're ahead in the polls, why would you change your strategy?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's idiotic. But also the DNC delegate on ABC said what she is saying is, I trust the American people and I trust journalists to explain the policies. That's not the journalist's job. The journalist's job is not to explain the policies. It's to present them. It's not to assume what they would be. I mean, if you trusted the American public, you would present the facts and let them decide for themselves, not tell them what to think.
Right. I mean, this is exactly to the point that we're trying to make, is that the legacy media is rebranding her as a moderate and a centrist. So it's obviously not true, but to the uninformed casual voter that just happens, hey, it's getting close to the election, so I think maybe I'll get a snippet of news. I'll turn on one of these things, and you have the media saying that she's a moderate. And she goes, God, so the voter says, well, I'm a moderate, so maybe that's the person I want to vote for. The second Kamala wins, she will rip off that sheep's clothing, and she will be revealed for the true progressive that she is, and that she showed us to be in her 2019 campaign of Medicare for all, single-payer system.
And she could be herself then, because she was polling at nothing. So, right. I mean, yes, talk, get people to pay attention to you when you were at nothing. But, we need to hold the legacy media accountable, not give them our trust. I mean, another example of just how biased they are. I saw a Washington Post article saying that Doug Emhoff, VP Harris' husband, right, is modern day sexiest man alive. Move over Ryan Gosling. Yes.
I see it. I totally see it. He's bringing dad bod back.
He has like 4 cheeks. I mean, he has so many cheeks. It's like our kids when they stuff their mouths and just, I want to eat quickly, but I don't want to spit it out.
Right. That's crazy. So they're trying to rebrand, the husband.
I'm Elizabeth Hurley.
Yeah, exactly. So, This can't stand. You have got to challenge everything. Challenge us in the comments. If you think that she is a moderate centrist, we want to hear from you. And I'd love to have the dialogue because, we would completely argue with you. But if you agree with us, also leave a comment. Hit that like and subscribe button, because this election every election is the once in a generation, but this is truly
the most insulting election.
It truly is. This is so wild. That Kamala Harris has not received a single vote from a human being in a Democrat primary, yet she is the Democrat candidate for president. This election matters. It really, really does. And so please stay tuned for greater information on Azimuth Podcast as we continue to move through this election cycle. And please stay tuned after these comments.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
So Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook fame, as well as Meta, has written a letter to Jim Jordan, and really it takes ownership of Facebook's and Instagram's election meddling. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is Kimberly McNabb. So I have the letter here. We're going to link it in our Twitter handle as a post so you guys can look at it. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll put some of it up as a photograph, but I probably won't be able to read it. But I'm just going to paraphrase some of it. I am going to read two specific paragraphs just because I want to make sure that that gets fully conveyed. But ultimately, he is accepting responsibility for Facebook and for Instagram to downplay and listen to the Harris-Biden administration's requests to eliminate any misinformation or disinformation supposed concerning COVID-19. Now, what that included was humor, anything that was humorous, anything that was satire, anything that was a meme. All of that was pushed down and labeled as misinformation, disinformation, and pushed down in the algorithm. So this is from Mark's own hand. So in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams if we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take the content down, and we own our decisions, including the COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. Now, he goes on to say, including the Hunter Biden laptop controversy in which 50 some odd intelligence operatives, including Leon Panetta, former director of the CIA, Brennan, former director of the CIA, James Clapper, DNI, all signed saying that this was clearly a Russian misinformation campaign, and it turned out all of those intelligence analysts were lying. They lied and published this letter. It was not a Russian misinformation, but at the request of these people, Facebook also censored and pushed down this information as well. And then we're going to go on to the last paragraph, and it talks about what commonly is called Zuckerbucks, and I'll get into that. So he goes to say, apart from content moderation, I want to address the contributions I made during the last presidential cycle to support electoral infrastructure. The idea here was to make sure local election jurisdictions across the country had the resources they needed to help people vote safely during the global pandemic. I made these contributions through the Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative. They were designed to be nonpartisan, spread across urban, rural, and suburban communities. And it goes to say, I know some people believe this work benefited one party over the other, and my goal was to be neutral and not play a role one way or the other, or even to appear playing a role. So I don't plan on making a similar contribution this cycle. So what was commonly referred to as Zuckerbucks, he had his nonprofit that were giving money, and the appearance was, or at least some of the reporting that I've seen, is that it was primarily going to Democrat and liberal campaigns at the expense of conservative and Republican campaigns. Now, he says he didn't mean for that to happen. He wanted to be neutral, but the dollars were not allocated that way as far as the reporting that I have seen. So he's pledged to just get out of it altogether, which I think is a smart move.
Okay, well, I didn't want to interrupt you on that. First of all, you censor anything that could be satire or humor during 2020 when we were locked up with, a 2 and a 4-year-old? Right. How dare you? How dare you? I needed every bit of humor I could get.
And wine and beer.
Oh, yes. And then, okay, demoted content related to a Hunter Biden laptop reported by the New York Post after pressure by the FBI and warning of potential Russian disinformation. Now, anytime someone says Russia, 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 guess what? I tune out. Russia got Trump elected in 2016. They interfered with the campaign. Oh, COVID stuff is Russia disinformation. Even we were talking about the transgender people, whatever you want to call them, the men pretending to be women,
right,
in the Olympic boxing.
Right.
Even you said something about Russia. I just tuned out. I was like, but. And guess what? I think I'm pretty symbolic of most of America now. Like, we just hear Russia, but okay, whatever.
I mean, it's the little boy that cried wolf, right?
Exactly.
You get desensitized to it.
And then the next plandemic comes around, guess what? We're not believing you again. We don't believe you. And, I'm sorry, doesn't plan to contribute to any other electoral infrastructure. I believe it when I see it because you caved, you folded the last time. Guess what? Be like Rumble when they wanted Russell Brand shut down on that platform, and they said, go stick it where the sun doesn't shine.
Right. I mean, let's talk about freedom of speech.
Cave once, you're gonna cave again. And what other platforms are gonna cave?
Well, I mean, so let's talk about the freedom of speech in these tech companies. That's the reason why Elon Musk purchased Twitter, was to get rid of all of that government interference and pushing down, information who gets to cherry pick and say misinformation is misinformation or disinformation.
Well, I mean, it's just a subjective term. It's code for stuff you don't like.
Right.
You're throwing your teddy bear out of the crib. I mean,
yeah.
But you're in the position of power, so we have to play that game, unfortunately, until you go to bed.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things where the founder and CEO of Telegram, the name escapes me right now.
Durov or something?
Yes, yes. He is a Russian national. He doesn't live in Russia anymore because I think he's based out of Dubai. At least Telegraph is, or Telegram is. It's based out of Dubai. So. It is a end-to-end encrypted messaging system, and he landed in France and was promptly arrested because the French government didn't like the fact that, according to them, that he doesn't have enough content moderation on his platform, and really, if something is to be a public square or a town square, then of course there doesn't need to be moderation if it's free speech, but just to be clear, just because a European Union or a nation that's a democracy
claims to be a democracy,
just because they claim to be a democracy does not mean that they have freedoms that we do in the United States. Freedom of speech is different in France than it is in the United States. Freedom of speech is different than in England than it is in the United States.
Well, it's almost non-existent in England now.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, so, these European democracies, of which most of our laws and traditions and everything come from the European continent. But for example, in France, you're guilty until you're proven innocent. Right? I mean, that's their legal system. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
But America's the racist country.
Yeah, but America's the racist. But at least in the United States, you're innocent until proven guilty, right? So the presumption is that you're innocent, and it's important legal differentiation between the two countries. So just because countries are a democracy doesn't mean that they operate the same. And with this technology, you have Telegram, you've got Snapchat, you've got Instagram and Twitter, X. All of these companies are vying for advertising dollars. That's how they operate. But there are all these platforms for freedom of speech, and when the government comes in and curtails it, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, a lot of conservative commentators refer to YouTube as ScrewTube, and we have asked some friends and family about ways we can improve our podcast and get more subscribers. And one of them even commented, "It sounds like you guys are being a little bit blackballed."
Yeah. There's
so definitely let us know what you think in the comments.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do you want more of this content? Because we're not scared of Google and YouTube. I mean, we'll keep making this content. So let us know in the comments if you want to see more of this content where we're just telling the truth. Hit that like and subscribe button and share and get the word out, because we feel as though us being truthful and being our honest selves and bringing you the information and the opinion as we see it.
Yeah, because we're not sponsored. We're speaking on our own behalf, no one else's behalf.
Yeah, exactly. And so with this election season coming up, things like this, freedom of speech and various freedoms, it's important. And it just, it's interesting. I find it very ironic that the Democrat Party lauds the free speech and says that the Republicans are going to tamp down on free speech, when it is the exact opposite. It's literally the exact opposite. It's the Democrats that want to crack down on free speech. The same thing, with Kamala Harris not having an interview. I mean, they're in the last segment we talked about how she is getting a free pass.
They're censoring the speech we get to hear.
Yeah, exactly. She's getting a free pass. So I actually, when I read this open letter, I think Mark Zuckerberg is sincere. I think he is sincere. I know we disagree on that, but he didn't have to write this letter and say, we did get pressure from the Harris-Biden administration, and we regret not standing up to the government. I mean,
well, I just love how people
honest.
Get away with stuff 4 years later. I mean, what are you going to do about it 4 years later?
Yeah, the damage was done.
I mean,
the damage was done.
You got what you wanted. Now you get to say, oops, sorry.
Right.
But, I don't know if I should take this as a positive or a dire warning. Like, okay, well, we don't really need Mark Zuckerberg anymore because we have other ways
right.
to lie, cheat, and steal.
Well, I mean, we saw this letter, and again, we'll post it on our X account, and maybe I'll copy and paste the words and put them in the description. I don't think you can put pictures in the description, but I'll figure out how to get this out so you can see it word for word. But this stuff is important, and as technology moves faster and faster, the ability for AI, to censor things. Oh, so here's a perfect example. So I signed up for Grammarly, and I did their free account and I did their paid account, and I wanted help writing a script that we were going to use, and I couldn't do it. Grammarly, so I started typing, this is what I want to have happen, and it was a pro-Republican script that I was writing, and Grammarly immediately came in and said, I cannot help you with this.
Same for ChatGPT.
Yeah, I cannot help you with this because this is conservative politics, and I'm not authorized to do that. And I was
But if you spin it the other way, happy.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, well, I only wanted you, Grammarly, to help me with this thing, and the one thing that I wanted you to help me with, you can't. I would say that is deleting freedom of speech from allowing me to have AI assistance in writing a conservative dialogue.
Well, the same thing with Google. If you try to find some statistics that will back up something is out there, but you can't find it. Either it doesn't find it, messes up the wording, or if you try to Google a search story, it's going to be CNN first, and you might get Fox on the third page.
Right. But this affects you. And so that's why we want you to keep tuning in to Azimuth Podcast and contributing to the dialogue that we're all having. So thank you so much for tuning in, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all of the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in. Is one comment worthy of a rampage? Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Kimberly McNabb, and with me is my husband, Barrett McNabb. So a girl got one little comment at the gym, and she went off on him. And so let's see if it's justified. Let's watch.
So an Ottawa police officer just sexually harassed me at the gym. As one does, of course. He was doing chest flies. I was standing in front of him, and I was respecting him in his fucking space and wanted him to be able to see his form, so I kept moving out of the way so that he could see himself in the mirror. And after I did this twice, he stops me and he's like, yeah, it's okay. I may just be a dirty old man. Here it comes. But I almost don't mind if you're standing in front of me while I do this. And I did what we all do as women when we get comments like that. I just went, ha ha ha. Turned around and I was like, fuck, I hate men. And then I was really pissed and went to turn around to tell him, like, this is not okay, and here is why. And he was gone. I got a Good Life associate, told her, and she wanted to see where it happened so that she could find it on camera, because I was like, fuck, I don't want to come back here with this dude. Like, I'm uncomfortable as shit right now.
Okay. Well, I do agree that I may be a dirty old man. It's a weird way to put it.
Right.
But basically, to me, he was saying, hey, you're better looking than I am in the in the mirror. I mean, that's how I interpret it. But
I'd rather look at you than me, because I'm working out here, and
there's a reason why I'm here.
Right, exactly.
But it's just another case of someone who clearly did not grow up with a brother or stepdad, and has no other problems, just needs a reason to be upset.
Right. Well, I mean, here we say, I'm a dirty old man. Again, that's a horrible preface, right? But the phrase I'd rather, I don't really mind you standing in front of me, because I'd rather look at you than myself in the mirror. If it went on, it might be harassment, but I think saying one comment, and then he got up and left, and it's not like...
Yeah, he didn't just stare at her the whole time or follow her to the locker room. I mean, that would definitely be a clear-cut case of harassment.
Yeah, so she goes on to say, in her interaction, she points out the guy again. So let's continue on where we left off.
He was there. I was like, oh, this is him. Confronted him. And then when I told him that was not okay, you made me feel uncomfortable, he was like, I'm sorry. And I was like, no, like, this is not cool. It's not okay. Then he tells me, I actually rescind my apology. Anyway, here's the video. And I kept moving out of the way. Oh, that's him. Ew.
I'm so
Oh, fuck
sorry.
off.
No.
No. I don't give a shit. It's inappropriate. I don't appreciate it. And it made me feel fucking uncomfortable. This is a place where I come to feel fucking safe.
You should be safe.
Oh, I should be.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. And you made me
listen.
feel unsafe. I don't fucking appreciate that. And for me to have to go, no, it's okay. No, it's not okay. I'm fucking autistic. This is my fucking safe space. I come here to fucking lift, and you're fucking disgusting as I'm moving out of the way so you can see yourself in the fucking mirror. Fuck you.
Wow.
Wow, what?
I rescind my apologies. You're nuts.
Good for
I
him.
rescind my apology. You're fucking nuts.
Yeah, I have nothing to be sorry for. Nope. I mean, first of all, you're going to have a harder time making your point with all the F-bombs. I am definitely not opposed to the F-bomb for sure, but it's just, you're in public, okay? You want to be believable as a supposed victim. How about you drop it, okay? And I feel sorry for the person that works at the gym, because you have one person complaining someone did something. It probably feels to them like when our children fight over something the others said, and I just have, God forbid, step out of the room for a second. I'm like, what on earth do you want me to do, okay?
Right.
How about both of you try being nicer to each other? Neither one of you are the enemy.
Right. Well, one of the issues that I have is, she talked about how she felt as though she needed to giggle at his comment, and that made it even all the worse. But yet she turns Billy Badass when she's got her camera on and she's with an employee and she's dropping all these F-bombs. Now, he apologized. He goes, "I'm sorry." And she's
could have moved on.
She could have moved on. I apologize, and I would say if you apologize, that means you've learned the lesson. And he sounded sincere when he said, "I apologize. I'm sorry." And she kept saying, "Ew, you're disgusting. I moved out of the way so you could see yourself in the mirror." And that's probably why he made the comment. Because again, more than likely, and men do this a lot. But we depreciate ourselves. We do this self-depreciation of, we're, kind of like, oh, I'm fat or, whatever. I'd rather look at you because looking at me, I'm fat. And so we kind of put ourselves down as humor. If you ever have been out drinking with a bunch of guys, we're putting each other down all the time.
I love being that fly on the wall.
We're friends, but that's just the way guys talk to each other. So sometimes we also put ourselves down a little bit in the form of humor, and that is exactly. She took it at the first part where we're listening to her side of the story. She took it as he was hitting on her or whatever. I'm at the position now. After she says that you're disgusting, maybe he is, maybe he's not, but if he is, that he was like, I know I'm disgusting, and I'd rather look at you than me in the mirror. I mean, that's really.
Well, he may not even be able to. He may not even been calling himself disgusting. Just, hey, you're better looking than I am.
Right.
You're better to look at. I mean, that's the compliment. If he had left out the dirty old man part,
yeah, exactly.
It probably would have come off a little bit better. Us like saying not to be rude, but no
right.
offense, but
but is it worth this response?
I mean, she is very unhinged. I think she needs some real problems, and then to drop the autistic thing. I mean, some of the symptoms of I'm not an expert, but some of the symptoms of autism is you have a hard time making eye contact. Clearly, she was able to make eye contact with the employee and him. Hard time to listen when one is communicating with them.
Okay.
He said you should be safe, and she was able to have that interaction without any hesitation. So that doesn't. She's able to do that back and forth that a typical autistic person is not able to do. So either she's full of it, some friend chose that word to use to describe her and she ran with it, or she's so light on the scale it's not worth her using.
Well, I want to focus on this is my safe space, and I would say that a public gym, and it's probably not when I say the word public gym, I mean it is an open area where multiple people are congregating, right? It's probably you have to pay a membership, I'm sure, and so it's a private business. But when you say a public area, I don't mean that it's owned by the city or the state or in this instance the province, because it's in Canada. I don't mean public land. I mean it's a public space where everybody congregates, and for her to claim it as her entire safe space, I think
it's a communal space.
Yeah, it's a communal space, and so for her to say that, and again, I just want to go to the point that the pickup line, right? The pickup line. Every once in a while, before the social media and the dating apps, men and women would have to interact live, and in order to break the ice, men would have this thing called a pickup line, and it was, some of them could be stupid, but it's obviously it's designed to try and elicit a reaction, usually a laugh or whatever. I mean, I saw one when I was in college, and a guy had a glass of water, and he dipped his fingers and splashed the water on the girl, and then dipped the fingers and splashed the water on him and said, "Let's get out of these wet clothes." I mean, and the girl laughed her ass off at it because it was absurd. But the thing is it broke the ice, and so that pickup line, that interaction, that somebody has to make the first move, and a lot of women I've seen videos on that are where are all the conservative men that are making the first move? I have to make all the moves, and I wish the man would make the move.
That's because too much of this exists.
Yeah.
We've lost the ability to interact with each other.
I mean, if you look at her age, she's looks like she's in her upper 20s, early 30s. If he's a dirty old man, then he probably existed like me, in an era where you had to make the first move. I mean, being in a grocery store and somebody, a girl you like is picking up a can, nice melons. I mean,
definitely don't say that. Please don't say that.
But it becomes the absurdity that gets you a laugh, like what? And hey,
or at least gauge the sense of humor these days.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I see this as it was if he is a dirty old man like he says he is, it was probably his attempt at a pickup line. I don't see a ring on her finger. I mean,
well, also I hate to be a prude, but she's pretty scantily clad.
Right.
I mean, that top is pretty small for her chest size. And then she has, for the listening audience, a lot of tattoos on her arms and even her neck. So I don't know. You're kind of calling for attention there.
Right.
That whole getup is calling for attention.
Well, I think, this just goes along with this trend of being able to publicly shame men. I can't tell you how many. I don't subscribe to any of these people. They just come across my feeds. But it seems to be all these videos where women are wearing
next to nothing
form-fitting, clothing, and they put their cameras up to see if they can catch men looking at them. Right, and they'll put little counters like ding, ding, one look, ding, one look, ding, another look. And
is that like entrapment for social media glorification?
I mean, it seems like that they're posting up like, oh, and it's the same weird female robot voice that does the voiceovers for them. So I was in the gym working out hard, and a guy looked at me 5 times. Let's count. And the camera is not pointed at her. She's in the camera, but it's pointed, set up deliberately, at a guy. It'd be one thing if she was center framed and there was somebody walking by, but oftentimes it's pointed at the guy, and she just happens to be in the side of the frame, and she's doing some weird exercise, and the guy is looking at her. In fact, I saw one where there was a woman that had a medicine ball between her legs, and she was doing some kind of weird thing, and the gym manager came over, and she immediately, was recording herself and was like, "Can I help you? Can I help you?" And he's like, "What are you doing?"
That's not an exercise I'm familiar with, and I have a degree in sports medicine.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of this is just absurd, and I don't know. What are your final thoughts on her?
No, just social media glorification. That's all she wants.
Yeah, I mean that's what it looked like. Shaming of men to be able to get on the trend, I think. Mm-hmm. Well, we saw this and we wanted to bring it to you. And thank you so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast. Please hit that like and subscribe button so we can get our voice out there all over the interwebs. And have a great day.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all of the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.